This is a look at the van when I first bought it before I did some demolition. So over on the left-hand side, you'll see that white bed frame with some slots. If you pulled the slots over to the right-hand side, then it expanded to about the size of a full bed, but not exactly. And I'm 6 foot, so I wanted to be able to lay flat. I wanted to be able to not have to, or lay straight rather, and not have to lay diagonally. Whereas on this bed, you'd have to because left to right, it was just about like 5'9", 5'10". So I knew right away I wanted to pull this bed frame out and do something that could accommodate my height. Additionally, in the back left corner, you can see this like yellow bookshelf on top of a green desk, and I knew I wanted to pull that as well. And then the right hand side, you see a sink. That cabinet had been basically retrofitted for those two 5 gallon jugs you see there. One was 5 gallons fresh water, one was 5 gallons gray water. I wanted to pull that too. And then here's a side angle. This side angle actually was a little bit before I took the picture before this one, because you can see there's some white on the cage there that I would eventually pull out. It's this funky looking felt on some foam boards that were stuck up there, and then some yellow curtains. You can also see some white wood on the door paneling, and then these yellow fixtures. I was going to get rid of those as well. So then the next picture, you can see I started to rip out the bed frame. And then the picture after that, you can see, okay, now the bed frame's out. Things are opening up a little bit. And I would end up keeping this floor, and I would end up keeping the 4 LED lights and the 2 roof vents. Everything else would go. So this is what it looked like when I started pulling the walls off. You could see some foam board there. Behind that foam board was fiberglass insulation. I did not want fiberglass insulation in a van build. It's not something you should be breathing in contained spaces, or rather small spaces that potentially aren't contained, because some of this wood was opened up, and I just didn't like the idea of breathing in some of that fiberglass. So with my sister, ended up putting on some masks, some gloves, making sure we were covered up, ripped out that fiberglass insulation, ripped out that foam board, and then you can see the end result here. Start to also get rid of that desk and the things that were on the cage, and pulled the middle door of the cage off. The previous owner didn't access the van from the driver's cab. They kept that cage basically locked. I pulled the middle of the cage out, knowing I would build a door on a hinge so I could access the back of the van from the driver's cab. So here's a picture of me looking at the end result here after just having pulled some of that insulation out. And then we'll move on to the design of the van. I used this software called VanSpace 3D, was able to select a Ford E150 2011, gave me exact dimensions of the model, and then went to work here. So you can see I now start to run the bed long ways instead of sleeping from left to right in the van. I'm gonna sleep, for lack of a better way of saying it, from top to bottom, or my head would be rested just about where that cabinet is, towards the door in the van, and then my feet would be towards the back of the van. And I wanted to create a pantry just to the back of the bed, where I could store food goods, put a fridge underneath there, and then to the right of the bed, I wanted to have a multi-purpose office / cooking surface there, so I could really maximize the space. So here's what the design looked like initially, and as you start to watch some of these videos, you'll notice that the design, I followed it pretty closely. I ended up not hanging a monitor on the wall. I was concerned about screens in the van. I built this thing to largely get away from screens, and I worried that having a full-time screen there wouldn't be healthy. So I decided just to go with mobile monitors and laptops, and that way I can stow things away when I just want to feel like I'm escaping the digital world in the van. So that, and then the only other thing based on this design, the fridge, the way I have it angled right now, it's kind of sticking out. It would actually be turned, and it would be just directly flush underneath that pantry cabinet. It wouldn't be sticking out like that. But other than that, I mean, this design is pretty much what we went through, and what we went for. And then the last thing right at about the time I was doing the demolition and the design, it was the holidays. So naturally, I did a little photo shoot, dressed up the van in some Christmas lights, took this picture outside the van, took another picture, which you can see here, and that ended up becoming my Christmas card, which I sent out to family and friends to let them know, if they hadn't heard already about the van build, this was a good way to let folks know what was going on. So here's the front of the Christmas card, and here's the back. That's it for the design and the demolition.